Francis Bacon is widely held to be the greatest living painter in the world. He's just been given the exceptional honour of a second major retrospective at the Tate Gallery in London. Bacon was born in Dublin in 1909, although both his parents were English. His father was a breeder and trainer of racehorses. At the outbreak of the First World War, the family moved to London, where Bacon's father worked in the War Office. For the rest of his childhood, the family moved back and forth between Dublin and London. Bacon never had a normal schooling. He suffered from asthma and was tutored privately. In 1925, at the age of 16, Bacon left home. He lived in London for a while, then travelled in Europe. He stayed in Berlin at the height of its decadent period. From Berlin he moved to Paris, where he visited an exhibition of work by Picasso. He decided to become a painter himself, but when he went back to London, he was known initially as an interior designer. In the early 30s, he turned more to painting, and Herbert Reed featured his Crucifixion 1933 in the influential book Art Now. However, his first one-man show was not a success. Discouraged, he began to paint less and started to gamble. In 1936, Bacon offered some of his work to the International Surrealist Exhibition. It was rejected as being not sufficiently surreal. In the early 40s, Bacon destroyed nearly all his earlier paintings. In April 1945, the art world was shocked by the painting which he now regards as his first serious work, 3 studies for figures at the base of the crucifixion. In your earlier paintings, you seem to concentrate mostly on the head and the mouth. Can you remember painting that in 1949?
Yes, I can. And I had always thought that I would be able to make the mouth with all the beauty of the Monet landscape, but I know I didn't succeed in doing so.
Why do you think that is?
What?
Why do you think you didn't succeed?
Well, I don't think I did. I think it should all be much more colour. I should have got more of the interior of the mouth with all the beautiful colours of the interior of the mouth, and I just didn't happen to get it. Well, that's one of the great paintings of the world, of course. Lev Velasquez is one of the very great paintings of the world. Well, I was very obsessed by Lev Velasquez, and of course I made a great mistake, and I tried to do these paintings afterwards of the Pope screaming, but I don't think they ever came off.
Really?
I never got the colour, and I never got the screen vibrant enough to be what I really wanted at all. Well, that is just a woman with a... Well, I couldn't put a... They said, well, why did you put a hypodermic syringe? Well, I said, I want something to nail it to the bed. I couldn't put a nail in, so I thought a syringe was just as good. He said, were you trying to suggest a drug addict? I said, not at all. Let's put a syringe in.
You've talked about deforming and reforming reality in your paintings. Would this be an example of it with regard to the body?
I think it would. I don't think you've seen the human body quite like that.
No.
I would say there was some deformation, wouldn't you, in that? I do believe that today, or you could say modern man, wants a sensation really without the boredom of its conveyance, or the cut down of conveyance as far as possible, so that you just give over the sensation.
But do you see any boredom in that at all, of the conveyance?
I think that's a very beautiful painting, and of course it does convey this very beautiful woman lying on the bed, but it's not quite either. You see, you once had that marvellous things to look back on, whereas when I do the things, I really always try to make concentrations of, concentrations of images. Well, that was a disaster. And we turned that disaster off, I should think.
Why do you think it's a disaster?
Well, I just don't. I just think it just doesn't work.
Can you tell us why you think it doesn't work?
Well, I don't think formally it works. I don't think that bit of rubbish I put in the foreground works. I don't think anything about it works. The layout is rather good, but it's just the rest of it I don't like at all. Wish they'd just burn it.
What do you think about the idea of doing away with story and representation altogether, a la Jackson Pollock?
I've never really cared for Jackson Pollock, and of course, as he's a great hero in America, I said the most terrible thing when some American cow asked me what I thought about them. She was working for something. I said, well, I think to me they look like bits of old lace. And that went down very badly, I'm afraid, so I've never been liked in America since.
Do you find any qualities in Rothko, then?
No, that is something that's always escaped me. Rothko completely escaped me. I mean, I always used to think that abstract paintings might at least bring you the most lovely, vibrant colours. But they've got a room of them here. If you want to be really depressed for the rest of the day, you'll go into that room. I suppose you could say that's a quality. It's just that I hate that dirty maroon colour he's used in those things. And if I wanted really to be depressed, I'd go in for a few hours into that Rothko room just to look at maroon. But I could go and look at a yard of maroon that they could roll out for me. It'd be just the same. I think they're the most dreary paintings that have ever been made.
That was a painting that Van Gogh did, and he said about it, I've tried to express the idea that the cafe is a place where one can ruin oneself, run mad or commit a crime. He also said, although he was very, very fond of the painting, he said, it's one of the ugliest paintings I've done.
Well, I don't think it's ugly at all. I think it's an extremely beautiful painting. Of course, I don't understand what he's saying, that a cafe that people are ruining themselves by drinking themselves. If they want to drink themselves, why shouldn't they? And I just think one of the great inventions of it, for me at least, is the way he has done the lights. He's made the light turn around those bulbs, and that in a way adds enormously to the... Without that, that painting wouldn't have the same extraordinary intensity.
Yeah. When he says that's one of the ugliest paintings I've done, he was obviously aware at the time that people were saying his paintings were ugly. You ran into the same reaction early on in your career, didn't you?
Well, I've never shaken it off. In my case. But he didn't shake it off, I don't think, in his lifetime.
No, not in his lifetime.
Either. But,
what do you think of that reaction when people say your paintings are ugly? What do you think of that?
Well, I'm very pleased I'm genuinely pleased that those people don't like them. I mean, that would be the greatest condemnation if any of them liked them. So I'm much more pleased when they really hate them than when they like them. After all, it means that there might be something there if they really dislike them.